Welcome back to the On the Ball podcast, another episode of the best potty going around from down under. No, I'm pretty sure everyone listening and watching is Australian, but thought I'd chuck that in for the international listeners and viewers. Plenty of punters and dribblers out there from all over the globe. Today we will be doing more NRL chat. I've got my Tigers jersey on today. Not sure why, I just felt like chucking it on. I actually like this jersey, the Bumblebee. A lot of Tigers stuff to talk about today, obviously with the documentary and a big win over the Broncos on the weekend. But before we get into that, we will be going through all the matches from round 18 and all the headlines that are, breaking the news sort of at the moment. There's a lot of chat about Tavita Pangai, Jaden Sewer. So we'll be doing that. Then we'll get into our top eights and then we will look ahead at the round to come. Won't be the longest episode this week. Won't be any groundbreaking analysis or interesting. Well, there will be interesting conversation, but there won't be any, not like last week where I talked about the free agents, but there'll be something more creative coming next week, I'm sure. So it's Thursday today, so there's a game tonight, but last week's Thursday match was, it actually wasn't a Thursday match because of Origin, sorry. The Friday match last week, the 6 o'clock, they played the Titans versus the Eagles at Seabus Super Stadium. And I have to say, pretty disappointing from the Titans. They showed a little bit of fight at the end of the game. I think Fafita crossed the line and they were looking at a bit of a comeback, but it ended up just being a consolation try. Eagles were good without Mitchell Moses and Junior Paulo. They're just, we expect this from the Eagles. They beat all the teams below them and struggle against the teams above them. I think Phil Gould put it pretty eloquently on one of the Channel 9 Rugby League shows, saying that they need to really... this is their bread and butter, beating the lower teams, which is really good. It always puts them in the finals race. But now in the next 6 or 7 weeks, they've really got to look at how they can beat some of the bigger teams. Because to be honest, I don't think their tactic of just charging the middles down the middle of the pitch and just offloading every time they get the chance, I don't think that is a sophisticated enough strategy in itself. You can have that as sort of the baseline, but then you need a lot of other things coming off it to beat a team like Panthers or the Storm, who just look incredible right now. Mitchell Moses is out for a few weeks with a fractured back, which he did in Origin. So I have to say, I wasn't a hater of his performance at all in Origin. I think he did a decent job, but to think that he did it with a fractured back, to me, that just makes it even more impressive. So I think people who are bagging him out need to just relax a little bit. But yeah, good win from the Eagles. Disappointing from the Titans. I thought it was a chance for them to maybe sneak an upset 2 points and really put themselves into the race for 7th and 8th. But that's looking a long way away now for them, especially with Jamal Fogarty getting injured there. Their spine's just pretty weak, it has to be said. It's not one of the greatest in the competition going around. Brimson, he's a good player, but he's certainly not the level of, a Gutho or a Ponga who are really involved in pretty much every play. Like even Reece Walsh, they play more like 5/8, where Brimson's sort of a bit like a fullback of 5 years ago who really only gets involved on occasion, and he's very dangerous when he does, don't get me wrong, but I think Brimson needs to bounce back in a big way this week because he's been pretty quiet in the last 6 or 7 weeks. And with the new halfback this week and Ash Taylor not playing the greatest footy of his life, I think it's going to be really, really important for the Titans coming into the back end of the year that he hits some form. The Sea Eagles versus the Dragons. This is a decent game, actually, 32-18. It was just a good round of footy, so I'm probably going to be saying that for a lot of the games. The Sea Eagles were victors in the end, too good in the second half for the Dragons. Dragons weren't too affected this week by their suspensions. Dufty was really the only one of note missing out. But yeah, the Seagulls were too good without Turbo, without DCE. Still got the job done. They're just firing on all cylinders. Olakwatu's awesome. Schuster is an absolute freak. Like, he looks so good. It'll be interesting to see how his career pans out because he reminds me of, not to like typecast him or anything, just but based off skill set, he looks like a Fletty Mateo or a T-Rex, but they only held that level for 1 or 2 years in their careers, where if he can do this for his full career, he could be something we've never really seen before, the way he is just so damaging in the back row. And Manly look really, really good at the moment. They look like, if there were a power rankings, you'd probably have to say they're the third position, I think, behind the Storm and Panthers, even though they're probably not going to make the top 4. They're going to be pushing shit uphill to do that. I think they are the best chance in finals to knock off one of those two. I prefer them to the Rabbitohs and the Eels right now. So, yeah, the Seagulls are humming. Everyone's playing well for Manly. And the Dragons, not great. They just lack a bit of creativity in that final 20 meters, I think, especially without Dufty. They were struggling to create points, and nowadays 18 points is the new 6, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not many points at all. Thought their defense was decent. They got a bit fatigued at the end, and I think both teams played all right, actually. It was a pretty good game of footy. Then Saturday afternoon, we had the Cowboys versus the Roosters. I didn't think they were going to win. I tipped the Roosters. I actually went perfect tipping this week. It wasn't that hard, to be honest. But I thought before kickoff, I thought maybe there would be a Cowboys ambush on, and it was. In the first half, the Cowboys were pretty good. Everyone was just playing their part. Without Val Holmes, Jason Tamalolo had a pretty good start to the game. Drinkwater was playing really, really well. He actually had a very, very good game, reminding me a bit of prime Benji Marshall at times. Tommy Dearden looked good as well. They were making a lot of line breaks, but they just weren't necessarily capitalising. I know there was one where Tommy Dearden went through. All he had to do was draw and pass with the fullback, but he accidentally slipped over and dropped the ball. Hammer, his speed was enthralling, made for a very exciting show, but ultimately the Roosters were just too classy. Stormed over the top of them, and yeah, it was a pretty good win considering they didn't have Teddy. Their halves were inexperienced with Hutchison and Walker. Billy Smith's great. I talked about him in the free agents episode last week. He's yet to be re-signed still, but he has held Josh Morris out of his spot this week, and that just is a bit of an ode to how well he's going. I think he's going to be a real star of the future. There's not many gun centers right now, as we see in the Origin Arena. Only one of the 4 centers is actually a center. Plays center for Clubland. So, yeah, I think he's going to be really, really exciting, and I think the Roosters should re-sign him quickly before his market value rises too much. Then we had the Raiders versus the Sharkies. This was probably the hardest game to predict all round, but the Raiders continued their win streak. Xavier Savage was the talk of the town, had a absolutely outrageous second game out of the fullback position. Sadly, Thingy did his AC joint, so he's out for the year. He played through it on the wing, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, his first 60 minutes at fullback were really, really entertaining. Just pace to burn, just another one of these kids who just came in and cut loose. Which, yeah, it's just really awesome to see this year. There's so many kids coming in. Fortunately, a lot of them getting injured, but that's sort of what we would expect. That's why kids usually don't come in at 18, 19. But yeah, he played very well, given the fact that he was third string fullback. And the Raiders, they don't look back, certainly not back to 2020 form, but they do look like they're starting to get the ball rolling a little bit. Papali'i starting to play well. Tarpany starting to play well. Starling off the bench is very, very dynamic. So, yeah, they could be a little bit of a smoky to make that top 8, and I wouldn't want to come up against them just because of the caliber of player they have. I'd much rather play, a Dragons or a Sharks outfit or even a Knights, but yeah, they probably are going to need some miracles to make that top 8, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. The Sharks, a little bit disappointing, you'd have to say. This is a game for a team who is on the verge of the top 8 or in the top 8, sort of in and out every week. This is the sort of games they need to pick up to, assert a bit of a lead on the teams below them, which, yeah, I thought that was a missed opportunity for the Sharkies, but well done to Canberra. Saturday night, I knew this was going to be a blowout. I actually thought it was going to be like 60 points, so I guess well done to the Knights for keeping it to 40-odd, but the Storm are just incredible. Like, they're just freaks. Like, they genuinely make 70 meters every set with ease. Like, even without a line break, they just somehow make 15 meters a play. Jerome Hughes was incredible. Everyone's talking about Nico Hines. I actually thought Jerome was better than Nico, to be honest. I thought Hines just got on the end of a few plays, a bit like Pappy did at the start of the year. But, yeah, Hughes is incredible. Munster was starting to look like the Munster of old. Brandon Smith's just playing incredible footy as well. All the forwards doing their job. All the outside backs doing their job. Justin Olam's a gun. And, yeah, it's going to be, to be honest, right now, the Panthers, I know they're not full strength right now, but they look a long way off, and that's saying something because they are looking very, very good themselves. So the Storm just look like they're going to be impossible to chase down. The fact that they're not even full strength right now, this week they're resting 3 Origin players and they're probably still going to win by 40 points. It's going to be interesting to see when they're all together because that's a lot of players to get ball. Interesting take, I'd have to say, because Pappenhausen was talked about being better than Tedesco at the start of the year, but I would actually play Nico Hines at fullback for the rest of the year, and I'd have Pappenhausen off the bench. I don't know. I just wouldn't want to tinker too much with what's been working for them so well. I know Pappenhausen was great at the start of the year, and the Storm were great during that period, but I just wouldn't want to tinker with this, especially with Munster not really dominating right now. I think having I'd say Hines is a better ball player than Pappenhausen. Pappenhausen is probably a better, more damaging runner. So I'd say right now when Munster's on the greatest of form, I would actually say Hines is the better fit for the team. It also allows Hughes to just run more. Whereas when Pappenhausen plays, he sort of has to ball play a bit more. But if Munster gets back to his full peak, then I can see them bringing in Pappenhausen again and Hines off the bench. But it's going to be stiff for whoever has to cop that bench spot. Harry Grant's probably going to be playing off the bench as well for the rest of the season. So, it's just ridiculous. The fact, you can't even hate it. I want to hate the Storm, but they're so good to watch. Their culture seems awesome. They seem like such a likable group of guys, to be honest. And just well done to the higher ups of the Storm. The fact that whole team is under the salary cap's impressive. And they've just created another generation of absolute stars. Warriors and the Knights are pretty disappointing, it has to say. They were without Mitchell Pearce, but Mitchell Pearce is a good player, but and I know Ponga exited the game early with concussion, but the impact Pearce has on their team is ridiculous. He's not that good that he's like a 40-point difference. I know he might be a game manager and all that stuff, but they've just got to find a way to be better without Pearce. They can't be relying on having all of their stars in the team at once to even be competitive. I know the Storm are great, and I've just talked about how good they are, but for a team, I think they're right in the hunt for 7th and 8th. They've got to start lifting this week because who knows how long Pearce will be out for. But they've got to start chalking up some wins even when not full strength, because right now they just struggle to show grit. I think when they're under the pump, they sort of give up a little bit. But Adam O'Brien seriously under the pump. I watched a podcast with a Knights fan, and he hates Adam O'Brien's guts. So we'll see how they go for the rest of the year. Next up, we had the Warriors and Panthers. This was the first Sunday game, and I felt so bad for the Warriors here. I thought they came out really, really strong. They conceded a charge down strider Kickout, who, I'll be honest, I think Kickout is one of the most overrated players in the competition. He's good, but the likes, I can't remember who the sideline commentator was, but he was saying things like Kickout is like the best player in their forward pack and stuff like this. And to me, he's probably lucky to be starting over Liam Martin. I think Liam Martin's a better player. And if he wasn't 6'8", I don't think he'd be a good footballer. And he's just used more as a decoy, which, everyone has to serve a role in the team. But it frustrates me a little bit how much people go on about him because, I don't know. I felt really bad for the Warriors. I thought they looked really, really good. They were trying something new with Tuivasa-Sheck at 6, Nikorima off the bench, but their plans quickly got disrupted. Tuivasa-Sheck got concussed very, very early. Nikorima was forced to play. Then injuries just proceeded. Harris went off. Egan went off. And by halftime, they were without a bench. And I have to say, there's got to be something done about this. It doesn't happen too often, so it's not a pressing issue. But I think in the off-season, there needs to be a tweaking of the sub-rule. I think the AFL has, I know it's a different sport, but the AFL brought in a sub-rule this year, and I think it's worked pretty well. And I just think this current medical sub situation where they can only play if you get 3 concussions, which just never happens. Or I think the other way is if someone gets sin bin or sent off and your injury as a result of their foul play, I think you can get subbed on then. But it's there's just got to be a way. I know we are scared of teams using the rule to just basically have a 5th player on the bench, but there's got to be something done, because if that happens in a semi-final or a grand final where a team goes down to no bench, that's just going to be tragic scenes, and it's pretty bloody hard to win a game of footy with no bench. And then the other big storyline coming out of this one was the Kane Evans arm thing. Look, it's just stupid. Like, I don't really know why it's in the headline. Like, yeah, it's just a stupid thing to write. It's not a good look for the game, but yeah, it's not really that big of a deal. I don't think you should get like banned or fined and just tell them not to do it again. I'd say it's just a bit strange, the whole situation. Broncos, West Tigers next. Mighty Tigers got up. My dad was pretty stoked with the performance, but I have to say I don't like it was a win, but I don't think it was anything special. Dewey in at 5'8", incredible. He's a gun. Like he reminds me so much of Jack Whiten when Jack Whiten's humming. And yeah, I think there's a lot of promise of the Tigers, and I think this documentary will be good for the Tigers culture, like as in the news around the Tigers has been negative for a long time. And I think this documentary might help shape it to be a little bit more positive, because I actually do think there's some positive signs of the Tigers. Stefano looked great. He's only 20 years old. Tukey Simpkins looked really, really good on debut off the bench. I think he's 19. The centre who debuted, he looked decent. He had a real crack. Tommy Talau looked decent in the centres. Yeah, Dewey was awesome at 6. And I tell you what, I think Brooksy seriously is underrated. Like, I think he gets so much stick. I think we've seen in the last few years, it's just really hard to be a halfback in a shit team. And I think anytime the forwards give him some run forward, I think Brooksy really plays really well. And it makes me feel for blokes like Kyle Flanagan at the Dogs and sides like that. It's just really hard to be a creative half when your team's not moving freely. Where the Storm, it's pretty hard to look bad as a half in that team, although those halves are really good players. But yeah, Dewey was incredible, just such a damaging ball runner. At his height and his weight and his pace, it's just a dangerous combination to be having at the 5'8" position. And I understand why they moved him out to centre, but for me, he just has to touch the ball more. So I think 5'8's good. I'd like to see his bombs return. We saw them earlier on in the season, and they were a really, really good string to the bow of the Tigers' attack. When there's not been a great set, when you're on the back foot, for him to just put up a bomb and sort of have a 50-50 chance of the fullback dropping it. I think he needs to start doing that again. I think they've sort of given Brooks all the kicking as a bit of a symbolic thing that he runs the team. But yeah, I can't see why Dewey can't chuck up a few at the halfway line. The Broncos were disappointing in the first half. They were pretty good. But yeah, second half wasn't good enough. They just let the Tigers run all over them, scored about 36 points, I think, in that second half, which isn't good. And yeah, the Broncos, it's a troubling time right now for the Broncos. They're letting a lot of players go. They're looking to sign a lot of players. So at the moment, I think we've just got to wait and see with the Broncos. They're not going to be good the rest of the year, and we'll just see how they go next year. Probably too early to call Kevin Walters, judge him as a coach. Ridiculous that they let Reece Walsh go. I know Tessie New looks to be a good player, showed signs on the weekend in the first half especially, but had a bit of a shocking second half. And yeah, just Broncos, I don't know. It's a tough situation. It just doesn't look good. Gamble plays with good aggression. He's one of the few players who shows good passion. Staggs didn't get the ball enough. I thought the commentators kept talking about it, and you thought he was up against a debutant in centre. You thought they would just throw it to him all the time, like the Blues did to Turbo and Latrell in Origin, but he hardly touched the ball. So yeah, disappointing from the Bronx. Good win for the Tigers. And the Tigers, believe it or not, sort of stay in the hunt for the 8, which is remarkable considering how badly viewed their season has been. And then finally, the Rabbitohs Bulldogs. I actually didn't watch this game in full honesty. I was a bit rugby leagued out of it by Sunday, 6 o'clock. I did, however, watch the Lachlan Lewis thing. I was legit just watching that 2-minute period, and that's what I saw. It was pretty funny. Like, it did arguably cost his team the game. The Dogs only lost by 8, which was impressive. I thought the Rabbitohs would tear them up, but yeah, a little bit disappointing from the Rabbitohs not putting away a side like the Dogs. Frustrating for the Dogs. They're starting to rack up a lot of honourable losses, which is never a good thing for a team. When you get close, you want to convert them into wins, but hey-ho, like a top 4 team in the Rabbitohs, you'll probably take an 8-point loss over a 60-point loss, that's for sure. But yeah, the Lockie Lewis thing, it was funny. I can't even lie. It had us in hysterics in my living room. Stupid thing to do, deservedly sin-binned, but yeah, it was pretty funny. Good to see. I actually think he's an underrated player. I think he could be a good player in the future if he is in the right situation. He plays with passion, and it's a bit of a brain fade, but oh well. All right, moving on to the Tigers documentary that aired on Fox League on Monday. Yeah, really enjoyed it. I have to say it's really high quality stuff. Actually, it's obviously not a Netflix documentary, but it's pretty bloody close. And yeah, I'm just really excited for the rest of the series. I'm not sure how long it goes for. We've been trying to work this out in my family because the cameras seem to still be at the games. But yeah, I think it's going to paint. I thought this before the documentary. I think I mentioned it last week. I think it's going to paint Imagine a really, really good picture, as a lot of these documentaries do. I know a fair few of the AFL coaches came out of it looking very, very good. And yeah, I think Madge will come out of it well. I think Brooksy might come out of it well if he keeps that halftime leadership talk kind of going. I'm interested to see what other storylines develop. I have to say, so far the one question mark is probably Justin Pascoe. Don't think he covered himself in glory in that first episode. That quote about, I know what he was trying to say, but he just did not say it well, and it didn't come across well when he said. So he was trying to say like nothing phases me, like in a stress situation, I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm composed, but it sort of made it sound like he doesn't care. Like when things are going bad, he doesn't care. But yeah, so like I don't know, I'm yet to see about Justin Pascoe. He sort of gives off a bit of a weird vibe. I can't lie. Like that he gets around the players and stuff, and he just wears a polo shirt as opposed to a suit, but. Yeah, we'll see. Jury's still out on him. The leadership didn't look bloody nice. Wouldn't mind joining their dad saying he might book the table next door to them next time they have one of those meetings. But yeah, really intrigued to see how it goes. James Talmo looks like a good leader off the field, which I always thought he was going to be because what he provides on field is probably not deserving of captaincy. So yeah, excited to see the rest of it. Really, it's going to be a great series. It's a shame we have to wait like 3 weeks for the next episode, but oh well. Just really honoured. I don't know, it sounds very over the top, but just very honoured and lucky to have my team be the subject. I'm sure all NRL fans are interested in it, but it's probably a lot more interesting when it's your own team. So, yeah, just very lucky to be in that position. And then 2 big signings coming out of this week. Jaden Sewer signed with the Dragons, which was heavily expected. Pretty sure it's just for next season. He fell out of favour at the Dragons, interestingly. I think he's a very, very good player. I talked about him in the free agents last week. He was my number 1 free agent left on the table. I think it's a better signing for the Dragons than some of the ones they've been rumoured to make. He's young. Dragons often sign a lot of older players, which I don't think is a great move, especially when their team's just older in general and they're not really anywhere near a premiership window. So I think Sewer's a better step in the right direction. Probably a good Tyson Frizzell replacement, realistically. I think the Josh Kerr experiment in the back row has been interesting, but I wouldn't say it's really worked, to be honest. I don't think he's a back rower. I think in the future, yeah, Sewer can definitely lock down one of those edge back row spots for the foreseeable future. He just needs to work on his attacking game. I'd have to say he's one of the least impactful back rowers in terms of attack. Defense is great, one of the best tackling techniques in the game, but yeah, need to see a bit more on offense. And then the big story is Tavita Pangai signed with the Bulldogs, and before then he's going to the Panthers. I have to say I disagree with it. Decent, I'm not going to say decent. Interesting signing for the Bulldogs. I'll just leave it at that. Interested to see what role they play him in and how he goes there. He's always had great potential, but never really been able to consistently unlock it at the Broncos. But yeah, I don't agree with this Panthers stuff. I was saying to my dad, I just don't. One thing I don't agree with it, and this isn't like a Panthers attack. This is a rule attack. I don't agree that they are allowed to. So what happens is, let's say Pangai's on $600,000 because he's only going to the Panthers for, 30% of the season. They only have to pay 30% of the $600K contract. So they only have to pay $180K or something. That's just an example. I don't know what he's earning and how long he's actually going to be there. But so what happens is the Panthers only get the cap hit. If I'm not mistaken, the Panthers only get a cap hit of about 180K as opposed to what he's really worth, which is like 600, 700, 800K. So ultimately, you could just sign a lot of players in the last couple of weeks of the transfer window who are worth a lot more, but you're only realistically paying them about a third of what they're worth, as in that's the only cap hit. Like you could leave $1 million in your cap, and then come July, you could just buy 5 players worth 800k. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know if I'm the only one who doesn't really cop that. Yeah, because all of a sudden you could build a super team in July if you just left some cap space at the start of the year. I know, like, there's risk with that. You want to use all your cap space so you have a good team during the season. But yeah, like, I was just thinking about it. Like, imagine if, I know they don't need him at all, but like, imagine if, I don't know, the Storm had an extra 200k lying around and they just brought back Cameron Smith. Like, that's the sort of, for only 200k. But yeah, that's the only thing I don't agree with it. Some people are saying, it's a bit soft to go to a premiership contender. Going from last to a premiership contender, like, it's a business at the end of the day. You can't really bag him out for that. But yeah, I'm interested to see his impact. I didn't really think their forward pack was somewhere where they needed a fix, but Fisher Harris is likely to miss 2 to 3 weeks through his partner giving birth. So apparently that's a big reason why they're doing it. I'll be interested to see if he starts or if he's just going to be a bench player. I think he's just going to be a bench player. But yeah, very, very interesting dealings there, I have to say. All right, time for my predicted top 8. My changes to my top 8, pretty minimal. Believe it or not, there's actually been a change in the Roosters position. So I'm just going off the ladder predictor, and each week it updates the round results. So the ladder alters a little bit. So this week I just logged into it before, and the Roosters have actually jumped up to 4th, which is, I don't know if I agree with it, but I'll back in my predictions. Eagles stay at 5th, and Sea Eagles drop to 6th. I don't know about that. I don't know the Sea Eagles run. I didn't think it was too bad, and they're in really good form. I know the Eagles run's hard, so that's why I've got them dropping down at 5th. Maybe the Sea Eagles are too many games back, but I thought the Sea Eagles and Roosters were on similar points. So yeah, that's interesting. And then I've still got the Knights in at 7th, despite their disappointing loss to the Storm. And I have a new 8th contender. I've dropped the Sharkies out because I must have predicted them to beat the Raiders, and I've brought in the Dragons, interestingly, who didn't win themselves, but obviously got them winning more games in the rest of the season than the Sharkies. And then, so just missing the 8, I've got the Titans missing out on points difference in 9th. Then I've got the Sharks missing out on points difference in 10th. And then I've got the mighty Tigers missing out on by 2 points in 11th. So it's going to be really, really tight for 7th and 8th, and it's going to be really, really tight for 3rd and 4th in the top 4. So there's a lot to look forward to. Obviously, it looks like we basically know who's going to make the grand final, but Wayne likes to prime his Rabbitohs for finals. The Seagulls look really, really good. Who knows, the Eels could come steaming home with this sort of latest kick in the butt from the media. So yeah, I'm just really excited to see the rest of this season, to be honest. After a great round of footy, I'm sort of reinvigorated in it again. All right, this weekend we have the full complement of 8 games, all being played in Queensland, I'm pretty sure. So spread across the Sunshine Coast, the Gold Coast, Brisbane, and North Queensland. First up tonight, we've got the Eels versus the Raiders. Interesting game on paper, but unfortunately, it's probably not that interesting. I don't think it's going to be that interesting. Moses is out with a fractured back, as I mentioned. Blake Ferguson returns to the first grade team for Hayes Dunster. But unfortunately, on the flip side of the coin for the Raiders, they're without Jack White and Xavier Savage, which is pretty disappointing. Just as the Raiders seem to be picking up a bit of steam. Whiten goes out with a rib injury. Savage goes out with an AC joint injury. Yeah, and it's pretty deflating for the Raiders, you'd have to say. Don't think Jordan Rapana is the greatest fullback. I just don't think he's dynamic enough. But he'll give it a red-hot crack, I'm sure. And then I don't think Matt Frawley and Sam Williams in the halves really strikes me with any fear. But we'll see. And the Eels, yeah, look, they won without Moses last week, so I'm sure they'll win again. The line is 15.5. I'm tipping the Eels by 12. I think it might be a lowish scoring affair. So yeah, I guess in terms of the line, I'm going the Raiders to cover it, but yeah, I'm going with the Eels on head-to-head. Roosters Knights, the Friday 6 o'clock game. Not a bad 6 o'clock game for Friday, actually. Teddy and Takayaho return for the Roosters. Josh Morris has been dropped. Really interesting. Just shows, I talked about it before, but just shows how much faith they have in Billy Smith. Daniel Saifidi and Suaso Su return to the Knights forward pack, and Mitchell Pearce is still out. The line is 11.5 in favour of the Roosters. I'll take the Roosters at the line and head-to-head. I've got the Roosters by 16 points. Yeah, hopefully the Knights put up a fight, but what we've seen in the last 6 weeks without Pierce, yeah, it just hasn't been convincing enough. Hopefully Pong is back. He's got to pass his concussion protocol. There's a few this week who have to pass concussion protocols. Right now, I'm just assuming they all pass, but there might be some laid out, so stay tuned for that. Cowboys v Storm is the prime time on Friday night. Jesus. Yeah, it's just clocked to me that that's prime time Friday. Jeez, that's not pretty. But anyway, Hammer is out potentially for the season after getting his appendix removed in emergency surgery. Pappenhausen returns to the bench for the Storm. Adokar, Welch, and Solomona are back for the Storm. Munster, Kafusi, and Finucane have been rested. Cooper Johns to play 5'8". The line is 28.5 towards the Storm. I'm going the Storm by 30. The Cowboys don't usually get blown out, so I was tempted to say like the Storm by 20, but it is the Storm at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm going Storm by 30. Then Saturday afternoon, Rabbitohs Warriors. This could be a good game actually. Team changes: Mansour and Jackson Paulo return on the wings, with Alex Johnston injured and Milne dropping to the bench. Arrow returns to the bench after his COVID breach suspension. Nikorima returns at 6 after having a brief stint off the bench. Jazz Tavanga is going to replace Wading, Egan at hooker, and Roger is concussed and he's not playing. The line is 17.5. I've got the Rabbitohs to cover that and win by 20. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Rabbitohs come out. Not great on the weekend. This is the time where they usually start to ramp it up just before finals. Bennett usually starts getting them going about now. So it's going to be interesting. Latrell's back, obviously, from Origin. So it will be interesting to see if we really see the wheels start to get into motion here now, because they've got to go soon. Otherwise, they're looking a long way off. The Seagulls versus the Tigers. Look pretty scared for this. Can't even lie. Disappointing because we're looking decent form, and this is after this game we've got a stretch of 4 winnable games. But yeah, I just don't have any faith against this one. The Seagulls, I don't think they're a good matchup for us the way they're playing right now. Pretty much the fact that they're good in attack and we can't defend. Gerbo and Alawai also are returning, as are Turbo and DCE. Not ideal to see Alawai there, because I don't really want him having pleasure of beating us. But anyway, the Seagulls line is 18.5. I'll be backing. Oh, pardon me. Sorry, that's really poor form from me. I'll be backing the Seagulls by 30. Yeah, I can see, like, I think we'll score points because we're a good attack and they're an interesting defense. But yeah, I just think they'll score a lot of points. Can see it being 50-20 or something like that. But yeah, not keen for that one. But the Tigers go unchanged, which is, good to see some confidence in the lineup. Panthers Broncos Saturday night primetime. Jerome Luai named to make his comeback. Matt Burton shifts to the centres from the 6, and Brent Naden drops out to the reserves. It's been a tough season for Brent Naden. You have to feel for him, but he'll be off to the Doggies next year. Line is 19.5 and the Panthers away. I've gone Panthers by 30. They weren't that convincing on the weekend. Haven't been that convincing of late at all, actually. I know they're without their halves on the weekend, but I reckon they could bounce back in a big way here. Not sure if it's being played at Suncorp, because that would obviously favour the Broncos. But yeah, I reckon they bounce back and have a big win. Oh, wow. Sorry, that is just shit out from me yawning during a potty. But anyway, I'm pumped. I don't know why I'm yawning. I think it's because I'm not breathing and I'm not getting enough oxygen. But anyway, Dragons, Titans. Actually, the Panthers, Broncos might be. Oh no! I was going to say it might be Sunday night, but there's Thursday. There's Thursday games this week, so there's only 2 on Sunday. Dragons, Titans. Corey Norman to service suspension this week for the Paul Vaughan thing. Jane Sullivan to play 5'8", which is actually interesting. I have to say Dragons one of the least interesting teams to watch in my opinion. There's just not much X factor, but Jane Sullivan will give us something to watch. He was really, really good in the trial games. Thought he was going to play this year, actually. I thought that was sort of the vibe I was getting out of the preseason, but he hasn't got a look in so far. So interested to see how he goes. Dufty comes back in at the fullback position. Adam Clune's been named on the bench. I don't know if he'll be playing hooker or he might come on for Sullivan. Who knows? Jack Bird's been shifted from the centres to the back row. I think it's like his 100th game or something. some sort of milestone. Toby Sexton is going to debut for the Titans at halfback. Don't know anything about him, if I'm completely honest. Hopefully he's a good player. Obviously, Jamal Fogarty broke his hand, I think. And then Mitch Rain replaces an injured Aaron Clark at hooker. The line has the Titans by 4.5. Interested to see that. I'm going the Dragons by 6. So I've got the Dragons covering the line in a big way and also winning the game. It should be an interesting one, though, too. Unpredictable sides. I think the Titans have the firepower to beat the Dragons, but I just don't trust their halves enough to get the job done. I don't know, though. Toby Sexton could be a gun. And then finally, Bulldogs Sharks. I swear the Bulldogs are in the second Sunday slot more often than not, but Marshall King returns at number 9. Royce Hunt is likely to play his first game for the Sharkies for the year. Aiden Tolman's banned for a week. The line is Sharks by 11.5, and I'm actually backing the Bulldogs at the line. I've got the Sharks winning by just 10. I think the Bulldogs love a scrap. They like to keep games close, and the Sharks, they were in good form a few weeks ago, but the last couple of weeks, they've hit a bit of a road bump. So, yeah, we'll see how they go, but I can't. Oh, they might put a statement victory on, but I can't see them pumping the Doggies. I think the Doggies are in a good run of form, actually. They're grinding out results. But that'll be it for another week of the Potty Round 19 NRL episode. It's been good. Good energy this episode, I reckon. It's been fun. It's been enjoyable. I hope everyone enjoyed the Tigers documentary on behalf of a Tigers fan. And yeah, hopefully everyone enjoyed the week that was and the week that will be. Because, yeah, it's been a really, really good couple of weeks in Rugby League. The games look back to an exciting, brand of footy. It's not big scores, but there's close games. It's exciting. There's high scoring games. But this week in the tipping, I have to say, one of the easier weeks in tipping. I might come back and regret this, but it looks like the first 6 games are all pretty obvious. Titans, Dragons, Bulldogs, Sharks is maybe the only parts where a little bit of differences lie. But yeah, hopefully good luck to everyone in tipping this week. I've enjoyed myself. Really looking forward to another round of footy, especially in lockdown. It's going to be interesting to see whether I watch the Olympics or the footy, but I do love my footy. But yeah, enjoy the Olympics, enjoy the footy, stay safe, and thanks for tuning in.